They helped orphans get to new homes and families in Europe and the United States. They provided millions of quilts. Anybody have a relative like I did who made quilts in their Lutheran churches and sent them? I remember that growing up. I'd go to my aunt's church. I was Presbyterian too, Adam. I'd go to my aunt's church and there were quilts on every single pew. And they would fly from Groton, South Dakota to the St. Paul Distribution Center. We still have a Kits and Quilts Distribution Center here. And then it goes to Baltimore, where the headquarters of LWRs. And they've just, any disaster, humanitarian relief effort really in the last 78 years, Lutheran World Relief has been there. And if you remember what Pastor Froggatt used to say, he would say it's one of the most lean organizations. The overhead is so tight and lean at LWR. They were always still very proud of how they managed the finances there. So this organization is bigger now. It has merged with IMA World Health, which is a healthcare organization based out of Washington, D.C. So there are really two offices, one by Capitol Hill now, and World Bank, and a lot of the funding organizations in D.C. But they, as you'll see in my PowerPoint, I've got a couple of videos this morning, they are still doing so much for the poorest in the world.
Great. That is great. It must be interesting to be on the board and sort of a proud moment as well.
Oh, goodness. So I have had the honor of serving on this board for 7 years. I was nominated by a Concordia Moorhead grad who worked at Ameriprise Financial with me, Dr. Louise Evenson. She lives in California. And there are about 20 members on this board from all over the United States. There are CEOs of hospitals and technology, people out of San Jose, Concordia Moorhead's college president, Dr. Reverend David Lose from Mount Olivet is on it. So I really feel honored. And, you know, it's 3 times a year I leave my very comfortable, privileged life here in Ornament, Minnesota, fly to the East Coast and hear what's happening in D.C., Baltimore, and then hear what's happening all over the world. So that's what I'm excited to share with you today.
Great. Well, why don't you go ahead and show us your PowerPoint? I'm excited to see it.
Great. I was mentioning to, I think it was Ben this morning, that as someone who has a doctorate from the University of Minnesota, I feel like I'm very much a subject matter expert on my topic because I've done years of research and publications. Today, I am a board member, and so they have kindly provided me with a PowerPoint and 2 short videos that I would like to share with you this morning. But these accounts are not mine. Bob and I have been to Turkey twice, but it was before the earthquake. We've never been to Ukraine. So I'm really a kind of a ambassador here today to share with you what's happening in Ukraine and Turkey. So those will be the 2 parts. There's a little bit of a ring here. Should I go lower or higher?
Well, you actually should be up
Closer.
Yes, and then we can take the volume down.
Okay, okay, I'll do that, great. So with that, here we go, Lutheran World Relief. This is their mission, save and improve lives in the poorest parts of the world. And here's how we're ending poverty in those 3 ways. Rural economies, through the environment, sustainable farming practices, and humanitarian assistance. LWR is we're in 42 countries, but we have offices in 19 of them. And as you can see, it's the most challenging parts of the world. Interestingly, our daughter Christy, who was raised here through Trinity, is moving to the Congo this summer to do a 14-week internship for her master's in global health at Georgetown. And the CEO of LWR said to me last week, Kathy, I'm the former ambassador from Greece. When Christy goes to Congo, not DRC, but Brazzaville, the other side, the safer side, he said, if you need anything, you call me, because I can get to any ambassador in the world. And that was such a heartwarming thing for him to say to me.
24 числа я проснулась от того, что было слышно взрывы, что-то бахкало интенсивно, и я начала... А мама моя спокойно собиралась на работу. И я говорю, маме, мам, война началась, куда ты собираешься? Она, я на работу. То есть она настолько не хотела принимать эту информацию.
Скажу чесно, ми перших 3 дні спали одягнені. Діти мої теж постійно спали одягнені, бо я боялася, що може щось вибухнути, і я приймала дуже швидко. Я, наприклад, знала, що мені там за 2-3 хвилини треба помитися, бо раптом що, треба буде бігти ховатись. Тому ми жили в постійній такій напрузі.
В этот момент еще бахкало, стреляло очень интенсивно, что-то по небу пролетело. Да, было очень страшно, и поэтому я просто поняла, что надо ехать в другую страну.
І так теж особа з 3 дітьми, можна сказати, їхати, щоб на бензину заправити, і все. 70 годин в черзі. Я їхала за рулем 3 ночі і 4 дня. Без сну, без нічого, да.
Но хочется немножко им сказать, все, можешь не бежать, здесь можно отдохнуть, здесь можно перевести дыхание и набраться сил. Это большая помощь.
І я просто вдячна Богу, що я сюди попала і тут можу безкоштовно харчуватися і проживати.
You're part of something bigger. You don't see, but I see. There's Mars. I see there's people that are telling me it's hope that we are longing for. So it's a lot. We are saving lives, and I would say it's really you are really helping.
One of the main reasons the board, the LWR headquarters wanted board members to come out and share kind of what's happening in Ukraine and Turkey is a way to say thank you. Trinity has given quite a bit to Lutheran World Relief through the years. The outreach team has given money. I know that proceeds from Agape have given money through the years. We want to say thank you for that. And then recently with both the Ukrainian war and the Turkey earthquake, Trinity had a walk. Do you remember those high school students at Orono High School led a walk? It was like $8,400 were given, really inspired from Trinity members after their leadership. And then I think it was about $2,500 have been given to the earthquake for Turkey. So I am here today to say thank you because the people in the video have really struggled. And I know it's so easy for me to hear about it, write a check, and then kind of forget about it. And I picked up the New York Times this morning and read front page article. I don't know if you saw it this morning, front page article about the Ukrainian war. It's still going on. And over breakfast, I was saying to Bob how, it's the high school history teacher leading a group there to try to fight back against the Russians. And the mayor of the city is one of the military leaders. I mean, it's just everyday people, kind of what Adam talked about, everyday people in Ukraine leading the effort. So they get so much inspiration from us when we send money or we send quilts or we send hygiene kits, which I'll talk about in a little bit there. So what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of a testimonial from this woman who we saw. Christina is her name. Christina is a Ukrainian refugee from Kiev who visited the cash distribution center in Gdansk to receive cash assistance from LWR. She is now living in Gdansk with her 3 children, Anastasia, 9, Kira, 12, and a younger boy, as well as her mom and sister. When the war began, Christina spent 2 weeks in the basement of a school with her children While there, she noticed many children getting sick from the cold and dampness of the basement. So these are her words. When the Russian troops were very close, when they had already reached Irpin, they constantly bombed Vinogradar and the Kranevka area, Kranevska Park. It was already very close, and this is the exact point, the moment when I realized that I needed to take the children and leave. This was when I took the children out of the basement so that the children could just go home to bathe, eat, and clean themselves. But just as I did, one of my daughters started to howl, just like dogs do. It was such an inhuman howl. She was scared. She just kept returning to the basement. I took her out into the street, and she went back there. She did not want to go. And at that moment, the bombs were booming, and they were shooting very intensely, and something flew across the sky. Yes, it was very scary. And I just realized at that moment, I had to take my children to another country. When we went to Poland, it was the night the station was bombed. The whole city was in a mess. Yes, they were bombing again. We barely got on the train. There were so many people. Everyone was pushing and screaming. Of course, everyone was so afraid. Everyone tried to get into this one remaining car. There were 12 people in a very small compartment, and many people were just crunched in the hall. For the very first time we traveled by train from Kiev, then there were 5 additional cars attached to the train in order to get to Warsaw. We arrived in Warsaw at the central station, and there, it was just amazing. Every square meter, there seemed to be a volunteer, and another volunteer, and another volunteer, and my children were so surprised. They were not used to that. They are modest, and they just squeezed my hand, and everyone tried to give them juice, a sandwich, water, anything. So this is, I don't know, a mother's story that touched my heart. And, it's just so meaningful to hear their particular voices, to hear what they've been through.
I don't know, it's hard to even imagine something like that, right? And your kids are having these guttural reactions from having to leave their homes. It's, as you said, it's hard for us to, be here and imagine what they're going through, but that is quite a story.
Real, yeah. So this is what they call a shelter or sanitarium, which is a word that I think might have a different definition here. As of June 3rd, 2022, LWR is partnering with the Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine to support 6 union-run centers like these that are being used for temporary housing. LWR and this organization are helping more than 15,000 IDPs, internally displaced persons, forced to flee heavy fighting in the eastern and southern parts of the country. We're also providing toys for children, food and essential supplies and equipment like folding beds, pillows, heaters, laundry detergent, toilet paper, and personal hygiene items. It costs, I thought this was interesting, $10 for a day for one person, and that includes 2 meals, one of them being hot, and that equates to about $300 a month per person. So these sanatoriums are health spa resorts in Eastern Europe that have been converted into hosting refugees and IDPs. So a meaningful way for our $10 a day and the money from Trinity to make a difference. The quilts and hygiene kits that LWR has been really famous for 78 years are making a difference even today. Alexandra, Klasina, and Nadia Argakova, along with their 2-year-old son, Kirill, at the LWR quilt and kit distribution in Lviv, Ukraine, on the western side of the country. The woman on the right looks happy in this picture, and she was, but when the camera was put away, she broke down in tears when she heard about the story behind the quilt she'd been given. She was blown away that the quilt was handmade, and a group in the United States would intentionally make this. People that are at peace don't have to do it, but take time, sit and read and talk about the Bible and pray for the people who receive them really touched her heart. So I think one more on Ukraine. Yeah, this is a newspaper clipping from the newspaper of the Federation of Independent Trade Unions of Ukraine. And what it says is, help provided to those in need. And as you study it, you can see, do you see that kind of front pack Lutheran World Relief on the bottom? You see that? So I'm not exactly sure what's in there, maybe quilts, it looks kind of soft. But this is at a center where the quilts and kits are being distributed throughout Ukraine and Poland. I'd like to add one thing here that Bob and I have family in Norway. And when Line Lisbakken came to visit us at our daughter's wedding last September, she told us about how fabulous the people in Poland have been, welcoming so many Ukrainians because they remember World War II, right? And so we heard that account from our cousin, Lena. Just, if you know any Polish folks, thank them because they've just been really generous. But these distribution centers, and you know, the LWR people are not sitting in Ukraine. They are sitting in Poland. Most of the US people over there are not in Ukraine because of the NATO concern, right? So they're in Poland, and Poland has been incredibly generous and hospitable to all the folks in the US who've been helping. Lots of medical care and supplies have been sent by Lutheran World Relief. Of course, healthcare was minimized after the invasion, and now LWR is running mobile medical clinics serving people in rural areas who can no longer go into the nearby cities for their medical care. This little girl with her dolly just kind of wraps it up. Thank you for sharing God's love and welcome to our neighbors in the midst of a war. Now we will shift our attention to another recent disaster, the earthquake that struck Turkey in February of this year. So let's go on to part B. So this family, Faridi is the mother, Oner is the father, their 5-year-old son is also named Oner, and 12-year-old daughter Azra, and their cat, Duman, live in the family tent in Kirakan, Turkey. Faridi and Oner lost their home in the February 6 earthquakes. They are now living with their 4 children, 2 here and 2 were working in tent number 63, a roughly 10 by 10 tent in a camp outside the city. The whole family volunteers in the camp doing a variety of tasks needed. As we saw, their children are Azra 12, Oner 5, as well as Elena and Furkan, who all volunteer. Faride recalls the morning of the earthquake, saying, "It was like the apocalypse. The shouting, screams, buildings collapse. The children were covered in blood and we didn't know what to do." Azra, the daughter, remembers the fear she had at the time of the earthquake. "At that moment, I thought my life was over." After the family evacuated the house safely, Oner, the 5-year-old son, remembered the family cat, Duman. So the father went back, returned to the wreckage to retrieve the cat, who was luckily unharmed. The cat now stays with the family in tent 63, but other than that, they weren't able to retrieve anything else from their home. They lost all their possessions. And to make things worse, the entire market systems have collapsed and markets and shops have all been looted. There is nowhere to buy food and supplies. Many members of Faridi and Oner's extended family did not survive and are still in the rubble. Oner says if they were given a nice building to live in, they would still be afraid to enter it because the tremors are still happening. Faridi said that some families who still had their houses are even choosing to stay in the tents out of fear. Although they haven't experienced any major problems in the camp, they noted that there are not enough showers and bathrooms for the 1,000 people living in the camp, and the electric supply is not sufficient even to run their stove. They have received offers to stay in accommodations out of town where they could be more comfortable, but Faridi says, "Our home is here. Our family is here. we've decided we're okay to be here. Let's just stay with our family. This is our hometown. And we have a saying here. It's just a little bit, but it's mine. Here's our video. Should I hit it again? You want to try it? Hey, Jared, do you want to try it? Yeah, it's about a 2-minute video.
Bir 90 saniye sürdü deprem.
Thank you.
Kıyamet, bağırtılar, çığlıklar, binalar yıkılmış, çocuklar kan revan içinde. Ne yapacağımızı şaşırdık.
Ya benim oğlum bana diyor ki anne son deprem diyor ki anne ben uyumak istiyorum ama uyanmak istemiyorum artık diyor.
O an yani bir anda böyle sallandığında yani ben o bina yıkılacak zannettim. Korkudan yani ben direkt anneme seslendim. O an yani benim için sanki hayat bitti gibi.
ماشي 4 ساعات هاي تقريبا 4 ساعات الحمد لله طلعناها تقريبا 3 بنات و3 اولاد جينا من سوريا مشان الامان مشان الاولاد يعني راحنا بنتين والمراه لم يعني راحت.
Hi, I'm Fred McRae. I am the Senior Director for Humanitarian Operations with Lutheran World Relief. We're currently here in Hatay province, which is one of the hardest hit provinces in Turkey from the earthquake. The needs here are just staggering. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen so much destruction before. Just everything is gone. The people that were lucky enough to survive don't have anything.
يعني ما طلعنا خالص يعني ما في قاعدين برا يا اخي والله قاعدين برا والله برا قاعدين.
For Lutheran World Relief, we're working with our local partners. We are sending in material resources from our stock.
Hygiene kits and baby care kits are helping to get the supplies back to families who lost everything in the earthquake.
Biz yardımları almaya gelirken öncelikle çocuklarımızın ihtiyaçlarını karşılamak için geliyoruz buraya. Ve haksızlık olmadan yani diğer çocuklar. وقت الأولاد بياكلوا كأنه أنا باكل. أنا مش الأولاد أنا مثل بعض أنا.
Hani Allah razı olsun hepinizden, düşünen herkesten, devletimizden, hani dışarıdan bize yardım, destek amaçlayanlardan.
Thanks to your compassion and generosity, Lutheran World Relief didn't have to hesitate to respond to this disaster. It is because of you that we are here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Great. You know, I've watched that video a couple of times now, and where my head immediately goes is 1968. I was a second-grade girl in Orange City, Iowa, and a tornado came through. And it wasn't even that terribly destructive. We had some roof problems at my house. The house across the street was knocked off at foundation. Nobody died. But I go through a little bit of PTSD watching those pictures because of my personal experience. And I still remember, I'd had lunch when that Red Cross truck showed up for dinner that night with hot food. I wasn't expecting to get emotional about this, but just when you go through something that's so scary, right? How something like LWR or the Red Cross or all the nonprofits that I know this church supports, and LWR is an INGO, International Non-Governmental Organization. They give millions away. They got a $50 million grant from USAID in DC to help these two catastrophes. So anyway, I guess I just kind of personally want to say a thank you, but I don't know, if you've been through some type of destructive thing in your life, you go right back there, right? The Tunheim family always gets a kick out of me, right, Bob? When there's a big tornado warning, I go into lockdown. I find my shoes, I find my flashlight, right? Am I right, Bob? I figure out in the basement where the family needs to go, because that was my experience as a little girl. So anyway, you can tell me about hopefully you haven't been through too many of those, but it just really touches your heart. So many families in the Hatay province in Turkey who have lost their homes or their homes are no longer safe and are staying in tents. And this is a tent camp. It's located just outside the destroyed city of Kirikan, just down the hill from where Lutheran World Relief is constructing 400 containers for families to move into by mid-March. And this is what one of these containers looks like. Reminds me of those little tiny houses. Have you seen these tiny houses that people they sometimes build them for homeless people, or some people choose to live in them? Well, this is the version for disaster relief in Turkey that LWR and other organizations are partnering with. 400 container homes will move into them, and it'll influence many, many people. And they're just trying to get as many bathrooms and showers and electricity for people to help them while they rebuild. So that really is the end of my formal presentation. I would be happy to take any questions. I'll see if I can answer them. But I just thank you as a member of Trinity. Bob, we've been here about 26 years. We're just so grateful to be a part of this community and all the good that we do here to serve other people in need, local, regionally, nationally, and internationally.
Does LWR primarily go to disaster sites, or do they have places where they're constantly providing aid?
Excellent question. They were primarily disaster until about 20 years ago. They kind of realized that they also needed to, if they're going to help people in poverty, they've got to teach people how to farm. And then they decided to merge with IMA World Health, so now they're doing a lot in healthcare, especially in the global south. Right now in Haiti, as you probably know, Haiti is more of a mess than it ever has been. The president was assassinated, right? The military are not functioning, educational system is not functioning, and so they are right now treating cholera in Haiti. So they are really in the most difficult places, but it's more than just disaster relief. They even, interestingly, they acquired 2 other companies. They acquired a coffee plantation because they're making money. I think it's in Peru or Ecuador, and they also acquired a technology company in Britain, and that's the company that's getting these money grams to the people in Ukraine and Turkey. So they're smart. The CEO was an ambassador. He's realizing he's kind of got to diversify his operation. It's called Chorus International, C-O-R-U-S. It's kind of the holding company at the top. And they have LWR, IMA World Health. CGA is the technology company, and then it's something coffee. We've sold it here. I just can't remember the name of it all of a sudden. But it's more than just disaster relief, Jennifer. Thank you. Yes.
I was just curious about the housing that they were providing, those prefabricated houses.
Yeah.
If they were earthquake proof, and could something like that be used like in El Salvador where they...
Right. I was thinking about El Salvador when you asked that question, because for those of us that went and helped Habitat build houses, that was very important, wasn't it? I don't remember them mentioning that when I was at the last board meeting, and it wasn't in my notes, but hopefully those containers are stronger, right, you just see the disaster in some of those pictures. So I can get back to you on that, but I would hope they're strong enough. Stronger, anyway. I see Jill raising her hand in the back. Oh, Jill's Googling. She probably has the answer. Go for it.
I just remember seeing an email recently about those houses, and I think they've been in this band about 3 years. So the idea is that it's going to help them as they work towards building stronger structures.
It's an interim.
It's an interim, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Makes sense. They're only 10 by 10. But it looks like it's a pretty durable kind of container. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I can probably Google this, but how many people were really affected by this particular tragedy?
I think, Jerry, did you say at the very beginning, was the stat you said 60,000?
I said 60,000 died, but I believe the portion was about the size of Germany that was affected. So, and you know, as she said, I mean, it was like the apocalypse. That the size of that earthquake was, I believe, the most extreme. And so, I mean, people's lives were just upended. Yeah. And the aftershocks continued for another month.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, how many of you have ever been to Turkey? Yeah. So it's an interesting place to visit, but I just cannot imagine how difficult it was there. So, again, another very good question. Hot. I just remember Kusada.
It was very hot. Yes,
just
that's
a hot
true.
place. We've mainly been there on cruises, right? You go on a cruise and they put you at the pretty sites. But I think you go into this part of the country and it was very poor, very difficult.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, I really appreciate you bringing this to us. It's interesting to hear from the people, and I don't know about you, but I feel good about what LWR is doing, and also interesting to hear a little bit about their history going back to after World War II, wasn't it? Right. Yeah, with the kids. So they are still honoring that heritage, but doing, of course, much more in the world.
Yeah. Can I end on one kind of celebratory note? Thank you. So, another war, right? Who knows when it's going to end, right? He asked me this morning, how's this going to end? I said, I don't know, but with Putin. But I would like to ask if there are any Vietnam veterans in the audience, because I heard on the CBS Morning Show this morning that 48 years ago, the Vietnam War officially ended. So there was a war that ended. Anybody? Would you please stand, Denny? I'd love to honor you. Let's give Denny a hand. Great. Excellent. Thank you for your service. And any other veterans in the audience? Ben, we've got some other veterans. Please stand up, Ben. I'd love to honor any veterans that fought in conflict. Oh, Ron, wonderful. Wow, wonderful. So, thank you for your service. Let's get through this one too, and continue to serve anywhere we can as Christians. So, thanks for the opportunity, Jerry. Take care. Have a good day.